I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm right here.
Hello?
I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm right here. 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 Right here. I'm right here. I'm right here. Right here. Can you hear me? 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 Can you hear me?
Okay. 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 Okay.
Hear me?
Okay. 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 Alrighty. Alrighty, great. 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 Like to introduce. Like to introduce. Like to introduce. Like to introduce the folks. 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 To introduce the folks. Like to introduce the folks. Introduce the folks. Introduce the folks. To introduce the folks. Introduce the folks. Folks. The folks. Introduce the folks. Introduce the folks. Introduce the folks. Introduce the folks. The folks. Eric. Eric. Heck. Eric. Hecker. 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 So I'm saying Hecker. So I'm saying you. So I'm saying your name. 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 So I'm saying your name correctly. So I'm saying your name correctly. I'm saying your name correctly. So I'm saying your name correctly. I'm saying your name correctly. Saying your name correctly. Saying your name correctly. Your name correctly. Your name correctly. I'm saying your name correctly. So 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 I'm saying your name correctly. I'm saying your name correctly. Correctly. Name correctly. Your name correctly. Your name correctly. Saying your name correctly.
That is. That is correct. 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 That is correct.
All right.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
All right. Good. All right. All right. Good. All right. Good.
Correct.
All right. Good. Good. All right. Good. All right. Good. 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 Right. Good. Good. Right. Good. Good. And good. 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 Right. Good. Good. And it's an interest. It's an interest. And it's an interest. And it's an in- and it's an interest. It's an interesting. It's an interesting. It's an interesting. And it's an interesting. It's an interesting, it's an interesting, interesting, it's an interesting, it's an interesting, it's an interesting, it's an interesting program, 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 program. Program we're gonna, program we're gonna, program we're gonna, program we're gonna, program we're gonna do, 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 we're gonna do, we're gonna do, program we're gonna do, program we're gonna do, program we're gonna do, we're gonna do, program we're gonna do, we're gonna do, we're gonna do, we're gonna do, it's really, it's really, it's really, it's really, it's really dealing, 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 it's really dealing with, really dealing with some, dealing with some, dealing with some, really dealing with some, with some, with some, dealing 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 with some information, information that, information that, information that, some information that, some information that, information that, information that, information that, information that, information that, that I first, that I first, I first learned, I first learned, I first learned in, I first learned in the, I first learned in the, first learned in the 90s, I first learned in the 90s, I first learned in the 90s, I first learned in the 90s, first learned in the 90s, I first learned in the 90s, first learned in the 90s, learned in the 90s, I first learned in the 90s, first learned in the 90s, learned in the 90s, first learned in the 90s, first learned in the 90s, learned in the 90s, learned in the 90s, in the 90s, the 90s, learned in the 90s, learned in the 90s, learned in the 90s, learned in the 90s, in the 90s, 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 um, 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 from a class, from a class, from a class, from a class, from a classified, from a classified, classified, from a 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 classified, classified, from a classified, from a classified, from a classified source who, classified source who had, 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 develop, 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 develop neutrino, develop neutrino, develop neutrino light, develop neutrino light, neutrino light, neutrino light detector, light detector, light detector, neutrino light detector, neutrino light detector, neutrino light detector, light detectors that, detectors that were, detectors that were, detectors that were, detectors that were, detectors that were being that were being uh, being uh, uh, were being were being were being placed on placed on placed on placed on sat placed on satellite placed on satellite placed on satellite satellites and satellites and on satellites and on satellites and placed on satellites and satellites and satellites and space lights in space lights in space satellites in space satellites in space in space in the space in the in the space in the space in the in the space in the space in the 19 1970 1970 1970 1970 1970 1970 1970 1973 1970 1973 1973 1973 to 73 to 73 to 73 to 73 to 70 73 to 73 to 70 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 73 to 75 3 to 75 75 3 to 75 73 to 75 3 to 75 5 time period 5 time period 5 time period 5 time period time period 5 time period 5 time period 5 time period time period that were being that were being that were being used were being used that were being used that were being used that were being used to were being used to being used to used to used to track that were being used to track being used to track that were being used to track 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 and used to track extraterrestrial 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 vehicle extraterrestrial vehicle extraterrestrial vehicle extraterrestrial vehicle extraterrestrial vehicle extraterrestrial vehicles vehicles terrestrial vehicles terrestrial vehicles extraterrestrial vehicles terrestrial vehicles extraterrestrial vehicles extraterrestrial vehicles terrestrial vehicles extraterrestrial vehicles terrestrial vehicles extraterrestrial vehicles terrestrial vehicles 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 target vehicles target vehicles target extraterrestrial vehicles target vehicles target them target them target them hit 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 them target them hit them target them hit them target them hit them hit them down 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 down them down them down them hit them down them down them the this 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 particular the this particular this particular the this particular this particular this particular this particular this particular particular man particular man particular man particular man particular man particular man this particular man was particular man was particular man was a man was a man was a particular man was a man was a uh, electro 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 electromagnetic magnetic magnetic electromagnetic 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 genius 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 had his own 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 magnetic genius had his own magnetic genius had his own company had his own company his own company near his own company near company near company near had his own company near Tampa near Tampa near Tampa company near Tampa company near Tampa near Tampa near Tampa near Tampa company 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 near Tampa when he do when he do when he do when he do when he develop 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 the nutrient develop the when he develop the he develop the he develop the develop the develop the nutrient like neutrino like neutrino like neutrino like the neutrino like the neutrino like the neutrino like detectors he got a he got a nash 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 he got a national he got a national security national security got a national security he got a national security he got a national security national security 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 order security order security order security order order security order security order security order security order from from the from the NRO 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 national national NRO national NRO national national the NRO national reconnaissance national reconnaissance national reconnaissance national reconnaissance national reconnaissance off and it's an interesting